welcome back to a long-awaited episode of Are You Not Entertained? We certainly haven't been for a long time. But apologies for the low activity. We have been feeling quite disconnected to the club, I think, like many different people. And we had planned that tonight we were going to record and we were going to talk about that disconnect. But then the world exploded. And so we've got plenty more to talk about as well. But before we go into it, and before I even ask these two chaps how they are, quick one from me. I'm supporting my DT38 Clobber, which is a charity that's quite close to home for myself. It's essentially connected to my partner's family. It's all about testicular cancer and raising awareness and sort of trying to get past the stigma of checking and making sure you're safe and not making it a weird thing to do, etc. I'll also be running a 10K, just one 10K. Peter runs 10Ks most weeks, but I'm just going to run the one 10K and be doing a bit of a GoFundMe page. So I might put that out there as well for people who are kind enough to support that cause. I might not run it as quick as Pete because I'm pathetic at running, but we'll see how we go. But anyway, let's get into all of it, really. There's a lot to talk about, boys. So no, I'm not even going to ask how you are, because what you are is in shock, in shock and disbelief, and actually a bit of relief now as well. But let's go through it. So I don't know how we want to open it, boys. I mean, obviously you've got Mourinho's gone. We've got the Super League that's gone as well, all of a sudden. Mason in, talk about what we're going to do next. But first of all, I think let's talk about why we didn't record for a while. What was kind of the cause of that, we feel, and why we felt, and still, to be honest, I feel even more so now, if I'm honest, disconnected to the club. So, Pete, I'm going to come to you first. Why have you felt so apart from the club at the moment, do you think?
Obviously, before this stuff happened, it was like Groundhog Day. I wasn't enjoying watching Spurs play. Like a lot of people have said, Mourinho's Tottenham was a difficult watch. Serial winner or not. And we said at the start of the season, you can win games, and we weren't winning games. And the worst thing for me was watching the same thing happen over and over and over again, of like, you take the lead, you concede late on, or you're winning and you end up losing from late goals. It was just consistently the same thing. And I got to a point where something, and I've never had this with Spurs ever, something in my brain just went, just don't watch them. Like, there's nothing in there that says, like, if you're watching a TV series, for example, and it's shit after an episode or two episodes, you stop watching it. Why do I have to keep watching this dog dirt football for 90 minutes? It makes me miserable. I get stroppy. Like, I have a massive sulk about it. And some people think, well, don't do that, grow up. I can't. Like, it's embedded in me. It's like ingrown. I can't do anything about it. So I just stopped watching. I didn't watch the Newcastle game. I watched about 20 minutes of the Man United game. I can't remember who we had before that. I don't remember watching that. Basically, from Arsenal, Friday. I barely... What one?
The Everton game was Friday.
I did watch the Everton game. I'll be honest, I did watch that. But before that, I'd not watched them properly for 2 or 3 weeks. And you know what? I had a pep in my step. I felt a lot better about the world. I wasn't as miserable because I wasn't watching this thing that was dragging me down and it was just hanging over my head. And in fairness to Mourinho, as much as he was winding me up, it wasn't that too dissimilar to the end of Poch's era when it was really bad. You didn't feel like they had a plan. There was nothing going on. But yeah, I felt, like you said, the phrase is completely disconnected from the club, which has never happened before until this. So yeah, didn't watch them. Couldn't really talk to you boys about it because I hadn't been watching. That was me. I was not interested in it.
No, I agree. There were games when I watched all of them, actually, apart from the Everton game I actually didn't watch. I'd gone to a friend's house and I was much happier doing that, to be honest, sitting in the garden and chatting away. But there were definitely games I've been watching. I said to my partner, I just feel trapped. I feel trapped watching this because I feel like I should watch it because it's my club and I should be supporting them, but I'm not enjoying it. I don't feel like I'm even that connected. we would score, and yes, I would celebrate, but then I'd just be expecting, and like I say, it became boringly predictable that we're going to concede again. It's going to be a problem, and we're not going to do well. And it just didn't feel like anyone particularly was that bothered, apart from maybe Sonny, who was nearly crying at the end of games. Apart from him, it didn't really look like anyone was that upset. But Ollie, would you think as sort of disenfranchised, if that's the word, as we were, or were you still banging that drum and really going for it?
No. I was much the same as you boys have described. Like, it was just, I think trapped is a great sort of description of how it felt to watch the games, because you're stuck in that sort of moral dilemma of, yes, you want to watch your team, but at the same time you don't want to watch them because it's predictable, it's boring, there's no excitement other than what Harry Kane might do in a game, and you know, he is the only good thing about our club at the minute, unfortunately. And you know, for now, and whatever happens with him, I don't know. It's another manager's gone, and by what we've read, he was the last one. He was still supportive of Mourinho right to the end, and I don't think it's a coincidence that he was the first person to talk about it on social media from the players. He was the first one to put a tweet out and an Instagram post out and stuff like that. I'm sure there's something to that, but yeah, it was.
I always think, sorry to interrupt, I always think it's interesting when a manager gets sacked, who does put stuff out there and who doesn't, and how quickly they do it as well.
But yeah, no, I was just going to say it was, it was a gamble, didn't work at the end of the day with Mourinho. I think Levy said on the All or Nothing documentary that it was a gamble, and he hoped it would work, and it just blew up in his face. I think the squad aren't as good as we thought they were. Mourinho's not got the spark that he had, and he seemingly fell out with everyone who had some sort of like emotion. And players didn't enjoy being hammered in the press, hammered face to face, hammered in training, which is understandable. If you're getting criticised every day, you're probably going to not want to play for that man and not come to work, just like we probably would, really. So, yeah, I mean, it's a shame that it didn't work out, because we know what Mourinho's history is like in terms of what he's won in the game and how much of a successful manager he was. But yeah, doesn't look good for him, does it? In terms of United went wrong, Spurs never even got a trophy under the cabinet, really. Be ironic if we did win one, wouldn't it now? But
it looks a bit embarrassing when they show the all the clubs Mourinho's been at and then all the trophies he's won, and then it says Tottenham and then none. But to be honest, that doesn't upset me that much. I think Spurs fans haven't won trophies in a while, and that we get beaten with that stick all the time. But regardless of that, I look at the Mourinho that come to our club, and that I don't care where he was at. I think he's struggling to win trophies because he's not able to connect to the modern footballer. And that's a huge part of it now.
You see, Carragher said he thinks he's done now. Premier League football, like Mourinho won't get another job.
100%. Where's he going in the Premier League now? And who would he go to in the Premier League if by choice? He's not going to go to Arsenal. He despises Arsenal. And then if you go through all the other teams, they're either not going to want him, or he's not going to want to go to them, because he still believes he's the top manager in the world, which he just isn't anymore. He's just not got that spark. He's like, we watched Wenger do it at Arsenal and die at one club. We've watched Mourinho do it at loads of different clubs, which makes him spectacular. Yes, it's not that you can say that Mourinho is or was a world-class manager, and you can still say that he's not a good manager now, and that doesn't. That's not like a battle you have to have. You can say both things. Whereas I think a lot of Spurs fans were going, how can we possibly turn down one of the greatest managers of all time? Well, because he's too old now, and because it's just not working. It's like saying, oh, well, we can't turn down Pele signing for our club because he's one of the best strikers that have played the game. Don't be ridiculous. Everyone has a sell-by date, and his is gone. But I wasn't upset at all when I heard that Mourinho had been sacked. Not upset in the slightest. Didn't even faze me. What did upset me was the announcement that Ryan Mason was going to be the interim manager. And the reason that upset me is because I think it makes it look like a bit of a joke. Ryan Mason being interim manager, if I'm Gareth Bale, I'm just going to walk into the canteen and tell him I'm sitting here. That's actually Gareth's lunch. So you want to shuffle on, mate. And I'm listening to Ryan Mason do his press conference today, and Pete, you mentioned it, how tragic it was. But one of the things that I thought was ridiculous is that Ryan Mason saying, yeah, they're a good bunch of boys. They all want to learn. They all want to get better. Who the fuck are you teaching?
I did think that. What can they learn from you, Ryan Mason?
What is Harry Kane taking from you? What is Gareth Bale listening to a guy who's 1 or 2 years younger than him and saying to him, yeah, you want to do X, Y, Z? I'm 1,000 times better at football than you've ever been. And I also don't believe that you're as much of a talker on the pitch or whatever. Maybe he was a good youth coach, fine. But this is not right. Like, even as an interim manager, it's just nothing there. At least when Arsenal did it, and no, he didn't do well. It was Freddie Ljungberg, who was like a legend of the club and did very well. And then at least there'll be a little bit of respect there. Why are any of these players going to respect Ryan Mason? Apart from, and kudos to him, and apology if I offended anyone with this, apart from, of course, that he survived that head clash, he went through trauma, and that's amazing, and the club looked after him. But in my opinion, all this is Levy being very clever, one, to sack Mourinho on a day when a Super League was announced, and he knows that's going to happen.
It's almost missed, isn't it?
That's been completely missed and brushed under the rug. Like, don't worry about that. Mourinho's gone, but keep it quiet. And then he taking Ryan Mason, who is the perfect person to do exactly what they're told. Right, here's our lamb. Here's our guy that was sent to the slaughter to have to do an interview just after our clubs agreed to sell out and actually not just piss the fans off and fuck them over and just leave them on the wayside. We'll send Ryan Mason out and he'll pretend he doesn't have a clue about it. He'll do exactly what he's told and say no comment. And that's how we'll move forward. It just all screams a very clever, stone-faced Levy move. And I just think it's embarrassing and disgusting. Look, that everything that's happened for the last few months at our club is a disgrace. And everyone just sort of chuckles on like it's absolutely fine. Like, we'll get into the Super League, but like, first, Pete, you was mentioning about the press conference. Go through it a little bit, some of the things he's doing, because I just thought it's tragic.
The worst, you just begged, like, obviously we're going to talk about the Super League, and like football is pretty much united around the world that it's just greed and it's disgusting, and there is no hiding from it. And every question he got asked on it, it was like, I haven't seen any of it. I've been too busy. But then I also think, I did say this to you earlier, for him, he's 29. He is now managing a club that he is like nowhere near experienced enough at managing. Like, he shouldn't be doing it. Like the Gerrard thing, like Smart went to Rangers, like, not disrespecting Rangers, but they're not on the same level as Liverpool, and he knows that, and he's kind of like earning his stripes elsewhere. Mason's been chucked in, and then he's been asked, you know, this thing that your boss has signed you up for, that the whole world is fucking against. What do you think about it, Ryan? What's your opinion on that subject? And he almost had to go, look, I'd loved it too, but it could have been like the shortest managerial reign in history if he'd have said, it's a disgrace, it shouldn't be happening. Because, you know, Levy'd shove him out the door the next day and go, tell you what, we'll give it Ledley. Like, he had to do that to save himself, keep himself in the job until the end of the season. We all know he won't keep it. There's no way he gets it at the end of the season. A club as big as Spurs, you can't have Ryan Mason as your manager. And yeah, he's had his horrific injury, and I'd love him to do well. And you never know, he might put a little run together and they might end up scraping towards it very much. There's nothing about Ryan Mason that makes me think, particularly. Do you know what I mean? Like, he'll try and go and play one way, and he might try and play expansive football, and that might be nice for us to watch. But yeah, it seems 100%. Let's stick a yes man at the helm who's going to agree to everything we say. Levy probably picked the team for Wednesday.
Like, you say that, like, what else could he have really done?
As in, like, who could he bring in?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't expect him to.
Chris Powell's there. Chris Powell, we should have had it.
Yeah. Isn't he?
But I didn't expect him to appoint a permanent manager.
No, of course, no.
But there was obviously a clear plan, because when Pochettino was sacked, Mourinho was in the next day. Mm. So I 100% agree with you, Jez. I think this is him being an opportunist and going, right, this Super League thing is blowing up. Let's chuck him out the door. When I went on Sky Sports app yesterday, when I got into bed to just have a little read through, because obviously I saw he got sacked, but I wasn't that bothered, so I didn't really read about it till I got into bed. it was like the 6th or 7th story down that Mourinho had been sacked because of all the shit. And that's Levy being clever. And that's what he is. He's like just a cutthroat wanker.
No, like him or loathe him, he is very intelligent. And what he did, part of me respects what he did with Mourinho. I think incredibly intelligent. I'm going to get away with this massively because also it's not just this Super League thing where he's clear. It's not just Levy in this, but them showing so clear they don't care about what the fans' wants and wishes are. They brought in Mourinho with the premise that he is here to win us a trophy, and that's the big deal. When they've sacked Mourinho the weekend before a cup final, and let's get this straight, Mourinho had a much better chance, even without having the players back in, than Ryan Mason does to win that final. He's pretty much said, we're actually not bothered about winning trophies. That actually doesn't bother us in the slightest. But what I am bothered about is not paying him a bonus for that. If he wins the cup, I've got to pay him a bonus. And also, you've got people like Conte who are sued Chelsea for unrightful dismissal. If Mourinho goes and wins a cup final, and then Levy's obviously decided don't want him anymore, and he sacks him afterwards, he's going to sue us. Is the character who would do it, he's going to come and sue, so he's going to have to do another payout. So Levy is, like you said, Pete, take his opportunity, right, this is the time to do it, save herself a load of money, cash out. Fans aren't going to get too upset, but they are going to get pissy about the Super League, obviously. But if it had gone through, we'll get about 3.2 billion. It's all money, it's all numbers, and this is how the world works. And I'm excited to get into the Super League because I honestly thought that was going to change the planet. My missus is laughing at me.
You go off the Jez. Who would you boys want to come in now before we talk about the Super League in terms of sort of from next season onwards, whether we're in the Super League, which that we won't obviously now, but whether in the Europa League, not in the Europa League, who do you think we could attract? And is that part of the reason Mourinho's gone now? Because there's one candidate that we know been linked with one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Yes. So Nagelsmann is the favourite, or that we know that the club like him.
Yeah.
And there is rumours that they did this quickly so that they could try and attract him because they know he wants to manage in the English league. Maybe they thought he might want to manage in the Super League. But obviously Bayern are after him. And I think Nagelsmann would be my choice. If I couldn't have Nagelsmann, I honestly don't see any other option than Nunes, in my opinion, from Wolves. I don't really see anyone else who has the quality who's available, or, Brendan Rodgers ain't going to get from Leicester. There's other options, but I just don't think there's any particularly good ones. I think Nuno's proven that he's a proper leader, got the bottle for everything. He's managed to take Wolves up and compete with a squad that isn't really as good as the ones around them last season, more so than this season, but this season's a freak. So I think he's a great character to have him. But going from Mourinho to him, Nagelsmann's the big one, but it's very difficult. I honestly don't know who's going to come in. I don't know what you think, but I think it's a bit of a mess.
My biggest concern is I'd be desperate to get a manager that you could somehow convince, and I know we're saying that no one can afford to buy Harry Kane, but somehow convince Harry Kane to stay for another season and say, look, stick with me for a year, see what you think, and then if you're not happy, you can go. And I do not think there is anyone in world football other than at Liverpool and Man City that could do that. Unless we suddenly, which obviously I'm not saying that's ever going to happen, but there's no way in a million years we get Guardiola or Klopp. I don't know who else in world football comes in and turns Harry Kane's head enough to stay for another season. So at the end of the day, you have to then pick who's going to do a project at Spurs, and that project will be without Harry Kane. That's my biggest concern, and I think it will be, money or not.
Yeah, maybe the only one you not said is Max Allegri, the former Juve man, who's like an absolute, but very Mourinho-esque. That's the problem you see.
Exactly, he plays the same way as Mourinho, so
that's the same as Nuno does as well. That would be my disagreement with him. And like you say, Brendan Rodgers is probably the next choice after that. And then quite a while of talk about the guy at Brighton, wasn't there, Graham Potter? He's one who's like made Brighton into some mad attacking team that just got terrible players, which I find quite hilarious. But that would be, again, that's going to light your eyes up, is it? But
it's like when we used like Eddie Howe used to get linked with big jobs.
Yeah.
Nice guy, gets your team playing good football, but is he going to take you to the next level? Not a fucking chance.
No.
It'd be interesting I personally can't remember what my thoughts were when we got Pochettino, but he was probably in that category there, wasn't he? Really?
No, because he done very well at Southampton. Very, very well.
My first thought of Pochettino was, why have you still got a translator? Because you've been in this country for ages. And then I saw an interview with him where he said the English press twist your words really cleverly, and he refused to do that. And I was like, all right, I like you. Fair enough.
But no, I just thought I was interested. But I think, Nagelsmann is got to be the one. And if we've got to push for somebody, we went sack him.
Now that is it Hansi Flick? Now that he said he wants to leave Munich, you just feel like he'll go there.
But I think RB Leipzig would rather Nagelsmann come to us than Bayern Munich.
But I don't
definitely.
It's not a choice.
So I think Nagelsmann's a Bayern Munich fan, which probably isn't out.
I don't know.
That's as good.
It depends on him as well. It depends on him as well. Like, does he think he's ready to step up? Like, and if he's any sort of proper manager, he will believe that he's ready to do that. However, he is only 33, so he might think, and I'd hate to think of us as a stepping stone, but he might think of it like that. He might think, I'll go and try myself in the Premier League, see what happens.
Yeah,
but
I can't see that in the slightest. I think he does it the other way around, Pete. I think he goes, I'm young, got plenty of time to manage in the Premier League, which is something I want to do at some point. But Bayern Munich want me, so I'll go there, win some titles, compete in the Champions League for a good stint, really earn my stripes, and then I can manage anywhere.
Or the Super League.
That'd be an intelligent way to do it, but not in the Super League, because Bayern have got some class and they've got fan ownership like all the German clubs, so they actually showed some massive credibility. But let's go into the Super League, because I am chomping at the bit to speak about it. And also, I would like to apologise to anyone who's nice enough or bothered enough to listen to us and watch us for being a bit less chirpy in this one. I think universally, all of us, but mainly because of just really disenfranchised by the club and angry with the club. So I don't really want to show much support in this one at all. And going into that, I did a poll and I was shocked with the results, and this will take us into the Super League. And I asked the question, if Spurs did go forward with this and it all went through and we competed in the Super League and in a league that takes away, because let's explain that it makes, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows, but the premise of it being that
if Ryan Mason's watching, he can use this for his research and then he can comment on it.
There you go. We'll personally send this to Ryan so that he can get a bit of a learning tool and he can understand what the journalists are talking about. Without his big brother sticking up for him and saying he can't answer. But the premise being that the competition is taking away 15 clubs, these 15 enterprises, whatever you want to call them, scummers, vultures, going into a competition where they can never leave and they'll always be in it. It's a completely Americanized idea, isn't it, where they're protected. And I understand it from a business front, you are constantly losing sponsorship money when you don't get into the Champions League. Millions and millions that they want to just protect themselves with. We're the top dogs and we're entitled to be involved in this, which, by the way, us and Arsenal are pathetic because we should have never been invited. Because we haven't barely been.
I saw Wrighty put a video out and he said, like, he was disgusted by his club and he said, we're sitting at a table that we have absolutely no right to be at. And we're exactly the same. I'm saying about business, sorry to interrupt, but do you know what I feel like massively pushed them is the year that everyone's had of the pandemic and no funds going into the club that way, and they've shit themselves. Absolutely shit themselves with the money they've lost. But sorry, carry on.
They've also learned a lesson. And the lesson they learn is they don't need fans. They don't need bums on seats. And this is why I thought it was going to go through. And the whole day today, I was actually stressing. I was genuinely sitting there like I was about to get broken up, like going for a breakup, and I didn't know the result yet. Because I was thinking if Spurs do this and I wouldn't be able to support them. Despite the fact that poll I did, about 80% of Spurs fans, there was like 80 votes in it, and about 80% of them said they would still support the club, which I thought was absolutely mental. That you'd continue to cheer and support and follow a club that clearly doesn't give a shit about you, that you would continue to do that anyway. But the lesson they learned from this pandemic, in my opinion, is that they don't need fans, they need consumers. So they don't need people to actually turn up and go to the ground and pay for a ticket. because all they want is pay-per-view. So if they did, like, who is it, the company like JP something, were pumping billions. Yeah.
Oh, is it the American bank, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the bank.
Yeah. And they'd agreed to give, like 3.2 billion to each of these 15 clubs that were going to go into it, which, by the way, Levy and Lewis have been like, yes, absolutely. Maybe please join. And Arsenal and Spurs were still hiding in the corner when all this fell apart, asking if they could have their 3.2 bill to go. I think
is the 3.2 billion still on the table?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think we were holding on a bit. We still going to get that money. I mean, we were loyal. But I think, that was the whole premise, that they can then get all the Asian viewers, all the American viewers, take this all around the world, forget geographical like loyalty or anything like that. It doesn't matter anymore, because once you've got consumers instead of fans, for example, like take it to America, you take all your gear and your clubber that you want to sell. You or I go to the club and we watch and we have a couple of beers maybe. We're not necessarily going to buy a load of shirts. American guy comes in very excited. He's going to buy a load of gear, get himself a tracksuit, etc. Like every time when they go to different places, they're going to make more and more money. And also it's all online sales. It's all pay-per-view. There was an idea where you could just watch it on your phone. I was reading the premise that they could just put out £1 to watch it on your phone. 100 million people are going to watch each game, easy, with the numbers they were looking at. You just absolutely bagged a ridiculous amount of money off of one game each time. But I'm buzzing that it's fallen through, but I'm disgusted that we were a part of it and that even had a chance of carrying on. But Ollie, you didn't think it was ever going to go through, did you? And why was it that you didn't back it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was almost like a threat to UEFA and to FIFA and the Premier League and the FA and everyone like that, saying we are what bring the people to watch. No, we are the biggest clubs in the world, and we are, we provide the entertainment, and we are what people buy. And they've obviously done some research into it and looked at the numbers, and are obviously feeling like they don't get their fair share of the pie. I mean, the numbers they were throwing around, wasn't it like 10 billion a season or something like that? That they'd be shared between the 20 clubs, which is obviously looking at your revenues and all that sort of stuff. So they can't plot that number out of anywhere. There's obviously some research gone into that to sort of see maybe that's what the Champions League brings in. I don't know. But I know at the minute the prize money split in the Champions League split between the Europa League and the Champions League within every single club is about 3 billion. So there's potentially 7 billion pound, euros, dollars, whatever, missing somewhere in this sort of theoretical world, I suppose. So maybe these clubs are looked at, I think, that should be our money because we bring these people in. So if that is the case, then UEFA have got a big question mark. Where's this money going? It's not going to grassroots football. It's not going to wherever. It's going somewhere. If that is the case, but yeah, I never thought it would happen. I just think it was used as a threat to these organisations that are absolutely as corrupt as hell themselves and don't deserve any sort of recognition or don't deserve to be praised for saving football for the fans, because that's absolutely not what they stand for. But they're going to end up looking good out of all of this. But yeah, I just thought it was going to be a threat to say that we've got the power and we will leave if we have to. And that's going to then lead to negotiations where they're going to get more of the money or more of the power or whatever.
And do you still think that it was just a power play off the back of Edward was just resigned, the Juventus president, has just gone. People are quitting and dominoes are falling out everywhere you look. Do you still think it was just a power play?
I do think it's a power play. I think it's a power play they got horrendously wrong. I want to say I don't believe they thought the fans wouldn't revolt. I don't think that's the case. I don't think they realised it would be to this extent, where it's become like sort of like a mob almost mentality. Like these people trying to take football away from us. They're singling out 6 people, saying that these 6 people are for England. That is, they are taking away football from the fans, the millions and millions of fans. I don't believe they thought to that extent it would happen. I think they thought they'd get some shit for it, but people would say, "Oh, actually, it's going to be great." And I'm not quite sure what they're smoking over in Madrid, but Florentino Perez thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. So unless he's read something that we haven't seen. I don't know, but yeah,
Perez is a prick, man.
We do know he's a prick, but yeah, I mean, and it's interesting. You look at the finances of these Spanish teams, and you know they are struggling, and that's not because of COVID. That's because they're thick as shit, and they do horrible stuff, and they sign players that they never should sign. They can't get rid of them. So I know both Madrid and Barcelona are struggling financially, and their debt is astronomical. So they could have thought this was a great idea.
They were begging for it. It was a bailout. And I think that's a bit of some of other clubs as well, including perhaps us a little bit, like, oh, bit debts, this will sort us out. Obviously, money is always a motivator. Before I throw over to you, Pete, though, I just want to say why I thought it was going to go through. And I was convinced that it was going to happen. And the reason I was convinced is because ultimately these are all private enterprises. That if you look at like things Boris Johnson was saying a few months back, it was like they're private enterprises. When Big Picture was knocking about, we can't really touch them. There's not much we can do. And then it comes out of this and he goes, oh shit, that's huge. We're about, the Premier League is about to lose all its value. That's a jewel in our crown, makes us loads of money. And he comes out, we will do everything in our power to stop this, which is madness. But part of it, and then also the fact that these are ruthless businessmen, or I thought they were ruthless businessmen, who, in my opinion, were designing a product that, regardless of how backwards and awful it is for the Premier League, for the proper football fan, it would have been a success and it would have made billions, because people are fickle. And I felt, and I thought they would be so aware there's going to be a huge backlash. You know what? We'll ride it out. There'll be a backlash for a couple of months, huge one for a couple of weeks. We will ride it out. We'll get past it and we will push this on, because we hold all the cards. We hold all the power. We have all the money, and we're going to make it. So it's like every movie you've ever watched where the pioneers rise up and they take over. And no matter what the legislators and the rule makers say, doesn't matter, because you haven't got the money to stop it. So I was certain it was going to happen. And I was then certain that I was going to have to, I personally wouldn't have followed Spurs anymore. So I'd have to break up with my club, and I'd probably end up supporting Luton or something, because they're fairly local to me. I wouldn't have been able to watch another Prem side. But Pete, I wanted to come to you on the effect this would have had on the Premier League, by the way. And this is why the 14, or being called sometimes the 14 small clubs, which is ridiculous. But the 14 other clubs in the league, Leicester, for example, who should have been invited to the table before us, but obviously money brought us there. So that's how you get into this league. The effect it would have had on the Prem is it would have completely diminished it. It would have made it awful, because what would it have mattered anymore? Like, you would have been competing to, the Champions League would be almost null and void. Like, I don't even know if that would have carried on. Europe would be scuppered. We would be not caring where we finished, because we're not going to win the league, are we? City or Liverpool are going to battle for that still. We're not going to win it. We'll be mid-table. We rest players in the Prem. It would completely destroy it. It would not be as valuable at all. And all the clubs in the Super League would poach players from the Prem or other leagues, because they'd have all the billions. I just thought it was madness. That what do you think would have happened to the Prem if this had have happened? Do you think the Prem would have, one, kept them in there, allowed them to carry on playing in the Premier League, and two, what would have been the effect? What would have been the aftermath?
It's hard, isn't it? It's like, you don't know what they're thinking. And I ultimately, if it was up to me, I'd have kicked them out of the Premier League. But then you lose they know that they're the six biggest clubs, or seen as the six biggest clubs that bring in the most money. I mean, I'm with you. I don't think I could have followed it. I couldn't have got involved in that. But what really upsets me is that it's not my club's fault. Do you know what I mean? Like, I fell in love with a club that is being run by arseholes, which is the problem, is the real problem, because Tottenham Hotspur as an entity, it's not its fault. It's not the club that I grew up loving, the players that I watched for years, that I've fallen in love with, that made me love football from the very beginning when I was a kid. They are being tarnished, and it's the same for all the other clubs that have been put into this. There'll be Man City fans, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, United fans, all feeling the same way, that their club's name is getting dragged through the mud because of the greed of some people. And that is what's upsetting. And I saw Gary Neville talking about it, saying the worst thing is they've made this executive decision without fronting it out and talking to the people that they've employed. So you've got footballers finding out they're going to be in some competition that they had no decision-making process. They were not part of that decision-making process. It was, this is what we're doing. You're going to play in it because you play for us. And that makes it even worse, I think. Just the cowards that hid behind it. And even now, like, even the things where they came out and said, yes, we are doing it. That's what's happening. Like, there was nothing like in any of the club statements where they said where they announced last night or this morning that they were part of it, where they were apologetic at all. Like we should have told you more openly or anything like that. That it wouldn't have made it better, but at least you would think, well, at least you finally were brave enough to not be a coward and hide behind stuff. And that's what pisses me off the most. Just the greed of those people dragging the club's name through it and not being open and honest about it from the start.
But
like Neville was saying, if you have to make. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, whether you like it or not, whether that was the club that we used to love, that's not the club now. This is what the club is, and like Liverpool fans, I see them all doing it. And Neville talking about these are custodians; they look after the club now. But ultimately, whoever's at the head of the club is the club. They make the decisions, they make it happen. So
the only way you change that is by people leaving, and I think that's what. So I think Juventus now can still be seen as the same club as they were because their president has left, and they now bring in someone else, and you don't have to worry about it because it wasn't him that signed them up for the Super League. It was the geezer that just left. And the same with United, Woodward going on the way out. You can probably get away with going, actually, and that's not true. Until the Glazers fuck off, that club's dead anyway. Like, they're always going to be in trouble. But yeah, unless those people at the top leave, you will still be tarnished with it. If they do leave, you get a fresh start and you can say, look, we never wanted that. We weren't going to do that. Let's start again. And that's the only way you can get around it, I think. But like you say, they're permanently tarnished with this brush until something changes. And I don't see Levy ever leaving until he'll still be on his deathbed, like iron lungs, like breathing for him, and he still will be making bad decisions.
So, Pete, the teams that have gone into the Big Six, how do you punish them? What did you do to them? Because they've got to be punished. You can't just go, oh, it never happened. Like, you went away, you did a very naughty thing, but you come back to it's all right. You go see the down, you're fine. You've got to punish them for this.
The prodigal son returning. Well, there's talk of UEFA kicking all of them out the Champions League and Europa League this year, which means that PSG automatically win. And then you get a Roma Villarreal final in the Europa League. So come on, Poch, let's get that going. I don't know. I don't know how you teach them a lesson because they seemingly don't give a shit. Like, how do you punish someone that was willing to do that in the first place? They don't
care about.
Say again?
There's one thing they care about.
Well, yeah.
Money. Money.
But I mean, I'd chuck points deductions at them. But then I also think, does that tarnish whoever then ends up winning the league? Let's say it's Leicester or West Ham or whatever. Does that diminish it a little bit? Does it tarnish the fact that they won the league because everyone else got points deductions? I don't know. Or you slap one of them next year rather than do it this year. Yeah. Slap them on them next year. They'll start with however many points deductions, 10-point deduction or whatever.
That's what I would do because, for example, with Man City, it doesn't matter. Like, slap them with a points deduction, you're going to have to do like 50-point deduction if you want to not win the league. So I would hit them hard. I'd hit them all with like a 15-point deduction for next season. And then if that means that someone else would Leicester win the league, then good, because they didn't do something disgraceful. Look what you like. I'm glad they won the league and none of these six did. So I did that. I'd hit them with a heavy fine. And I would love it, absolutely love it, if they said no European football for any of you, especially because we ain't going to get it. So I think that'd be brilliant. I think do all of that, hit them extremely hard because this won't be the end of it. There'll be another one like this. This is a reaction to the clubs growing so big and the salaries getting so big. They need to sustain it, and there's a need to get more and more and to keep on growing. This is capitalism at its worst. And they'll continue to go, and there will be new products of this, and there will be a few more, and people will come and go. But as long as you invite these kind of characters to the table, it's like, well, let's go into this bit. Actually, like the Prem and UEFA and FIFA they kind of invited these characters to the table. So how much are they to blame? How much is the Premier League, UEFA, and FIFA? Let's just stick with those. Let's not go into like the Liga, etc., and other leagues who we don't know as much about. So, like, Ollie, in your opinion, they're not as much to blame, obviously, as these cretins, but how much do they have to just hold their hands up and say, look, we have messed up?
They're absolutely part of the problem. Absolutely. There's, you look at the Premier League as itself, formed in 1992. Almost all football history before that point has been erased in England. You look at some of the stuff that's been on in that and in isolation. I know that is different. It wasn't a breakaway league, but it was a commercialized league that took away from kind of the first division as it was,
100%.
and has absolutely destroyed some clubs. When you look at Leeds, I think did they not win the first division the season before the Premier League, and then they pretty much got hammered from just a poor financial state, but possibly from the Premier League. I don't know, but yeah, they're absolutely to blame. And the football now it didn't die yesterday. It died a long time ago in terms of being for the fans. I just found some things looking at the finals for the Europa League and the Champions League, and the seat allocations were embarrassing. Like the 19 finals. So when Arsenal played Chelsea, each team got 6,000 seats each in a 68,000 seat stadium. So 12,000. So what's that? I can't even math that quick. That's like 46,000 seats for commercialism. You've got the Champions League final, 17,000 seats each team. So that was 34,000 in a 63,000 seat stadium. Like, these teams aren't barely getting half a stadium for their fans. So I'm not happy with UEFA trying to take this for the fan stance, because they're just as bad. And FIFA, the World Cup, they've sold 2 World Cups, one to Qatar, which is just a hideous decision. Is playing the World Cup in the middle of winter for the fans? I don't think it is. That's for their back pockets. But yeah, like you said, how do you punish these people? Just rip their money away, kick them out of Europe for a season, points deductions, do whatever you can. The problem is, can you legally do it? Have they broken a rule? I don't think they have. You can make an Audi Cup up, you can make an Emirates Cup up.
I
don't know.
I didn't see the full thing of it, but there was a clip this morning on TalkSport of a Liverpool fan talking to Laura Woods on TalkSport, as I said, and she was saying they'd be kicked out of the Premier League, and he was like, "You can't kick us out, you can't." And she was like, "You can, they can, because it's like, I don't know, it's like rule 7.2 or something, and they have broken some sort of rule that says they can be kicked out of the Premier League." So it'd be interesting. To see.
There are in the contracts for European football and from the Prem to not start up a rival to either competition, essentially. So there are rules that they have signed, and also, like, I mentioned this before we started recording, chaps, but is it Serafin, who's the head of UEFA? He was talking, and he's a criminal lawyer, or he used to be a criminal lawyer, and listening to him talk was fascinating. And also to learn that Eleni, who I think is the one from Juventus who's now dropped out, is the godfather of one of his children. And this is another part of the reason why I thought this was going to go through, because I thought if these businessmen are so ruthless that he's going to turn his back on someone who must have been one of his best friends, like connection, like family type connection, and lie to his face and sit on the top of the board, and also always be in these meetings. Ed Woodward as well, like Lenny said, they were speaking to him on the phone the day before, and he was happy. We'll sign off on these contracts. We're happy with the new format for the Champions League, which, by the way, is not great. But sign off on the contract for that, no problem. And then the next day announce that they've started a new one is crazy. Like, this is how cutthroat these guys are. But then they've embarrassed themselves, because I thought they were like that, and they were ruthless businessmen who knew what was going to happen, and there was going to be a backlash, and they'll see it and they'll go for it. 2 days later, they've all just bailed out like naive children, and just proven that actually they're bumbling idiots who didn't know this was going to happen. It's incredibly fascinating, stressful, but incredible at the same time. Yeah, the point, I think it's interesting also you said about what the Premier League essentially did Division 1, because it's quite hypocritical, it is, because they did just swallow that up and spit it out. And then Sky, etc., made this, they built it, they made this money-making machine, and slowly the Prem has also given more power to the Big Six. They've been letting them win XYZ battles behind the scenes in stealth mode. So it's strange that the Big Six made such a ridiculous jump, because they were slowly winning these fights anyway. In my opinion, the Premier League, UEFA, FIFA, they said, yes, come in, please enter, billionaires from America, from Asia, from wherever, please come and sit at the table. They invited these like blood-sucking vultures to come and sit down with them, and then they were shocked when they acted like blood-sucking vultures. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, what did you think was going to happen? The Premier League sold to the devil ages ago. The devil showed its head, and they were like, "Shit, they're stealing our league." It's absolutely mental. There's so much naivety on all sides, but ultimately, chaps, it finished in a good way at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's still some good can come out of this. Like some real good can come out of it, because I think it was Carragher saying about how seeing these teams play each other would make the game quite, it'd lose interest. Madrid, Liverpool would lose interest.
I agree.
It'd make it stale, which I agree with to an extent. But football's already a bit stale, in my opinion. I feel like it's already got to that point. There's too many tournaments, there's too many games, there's too much going on. So for me, like, they're introducing the new Champions League, a third-tier European league in terms of a third-tier competition that will send you off to bloody who knows where over Europe. And I think UEFA themselves have got if something good come out of it, if it gets everyone around the table negotiating, okay, maybe let's create a proper elite competition and not trying to make it inclusive to people who finish sixth in the league, because they probably don't deserve anything finishing sixth in the league. And I think if that's the only good thing that come out of it is maybe actually, look at what you're doing and stop trying to give more games, more this, more that, because people don't really want that. I don't. It is great watching football all the time, but I have other things I want to do in my life. I don't want to watch Spurs 3 times a week for an hour and a half. It'd be great, but it's also, you just get bored of it. So I think as well, there's something to be said that, they don't need to have be inclusive in football. Have a Cup Winners' Cup like the Champions League was. Make it a proper. If you want to make it a Super League, actually make it one where it is whoever wins the league gets to play in it, and that's it. And that's fair for the leagues or whatever they want to do. But I'm massively against making the Champions League a bigger tournament. Same for the World Cup. It's like 48 teams, something stupid like that. Like, what's the point? It's pointless.
I completely agree. That's not completely agree. Actually, it's not correct. I agree with the idea of making it smaller. But what I would do is keep the Champions League as it is now. I think the Champions League is a fantastic tournament. I genuinely do.
Yeah.
Keep it exactly as it is. However, change the Europa League. Don't get rid of it, because I think there is a good way. I remember when we first got into it, I was very excited to finally get into Europe. Yeah. So I think let it be that, but only ever have much less teams in it. Don't let the Champions League dropouts fall into it.
Yeah.
Just let it, have it as it is, but just sure to make it smaller. And then, in terms of the amount of games, the World Cup does need to get bigger, etc. So I agree with a lot of what you said, apart from perhaps changing too much of the European format. But yeah, Pete, that was the kind of positive spin of what could happen from now. Can you give me the negative spin that could happen from now?
The master.
Well, I'll see you in 12 months, 18 months time when it all comes out again and they try and do something else. This ain't gonna go away. They know that they've got people in now. They know they've got people in these positions where they can go, you can tempt them with the carrot or with the 3.2 million pound or whatever it is. So this isn't going to go away. This will rumble on for a while. This one has fallen through, but someone else will step up to the plate. And at some point, I think it could well happen. I think there will come a point where something like this potentially does happen. Fingers crossed it never does, because it's disgusting. It's not what football is for. I saw Bielsa. You see Bielsa's quote. where it's like the reason football is the greatest sport in the world is because the poor can, or the weak can beat the rich, or something along those lines, or the weak can beat the powerful. And I was like, it's massive. And I agree with you. Like, on the competition, there's too much football. I'd scrap the League Cup, sack that off. No one cares about
after we win it next weekend.
After we win it at the weekend, then we'll win the final level League Cup. I'd get rid of that. I agree with you. I don't know about this, what you're saying about it being stale. I agree there's too many games. However, when you watch the Champions League draw and you see two massive teams go in the same group, or three big teams go in the same group, you know, oh, that's going to be a wicked group. Like, can't wait to watch that. I still get that buzz. Big quarter-final draw where you get massive teams against each other. I still get that buzz. FA Cup draw where you get a little team get a massive team. That's still, I get a good buzz from that. So I'd keep the FA Cup. League Cup can go. I agree with the Europa League, not having the Champions League dropouts in it, because it just diminishes it as a competition straight away. So you can be third out of four and still potentially win a big European trophy. That's pathetic. That should never happen. I would just have it as a mini Champions League. I'd have the same format, get the same amount of teams in it, do exactly the same as they do in the Champions League, but it's just a lesser competition because the caliber of clubs is different. Do something with it, because at the minute it's a joke competition. And I agree there's too much football on, but I wonder if that's just because you can't get fans in the stadium, so all the football is on.
Yeah, that's
the other big thing.
There's a lot more going on, isn't there? Just because there's one game on, bang, bang, after each other. It's not
Always.
like on Saturday you've got 6 games at 3 o'clock. It's not. That's probably has an impact, I imagine, actually.
Yeah. But I also agree with what you're saying about the Premier League, UEFA, FIFA. Like, it's a joke that they come out of this smelling like roses when we all know they're equally as corrupt. Like, they just do it on a little bit like behind the scenes, and they do it in ways that doesn't massively affect me, I don't think. So like FIFA selling the World Cup to Qatar, it's annoying, but it doesn't make me think like, oh, I hate football. Whereas my club trying to buy into something or get bought into something that's just shitting on everything else, that affects me, and that's why it's such a big uproar.
Yeah.
So I think they are corrupt in ways that go under the radar a little bit, and we don't really, not that we don't hear about it, but we don't kick off about it as much as we probably should.
Did you boys listen to was it Simon Jordan, the Crystal Palace chairman?
Yeah.
And how he was saying that he was like, what he doesn't get is like these top 6 clubs are getting their way for a long time, and he's basically insinuating that, you know, they do get their way and they do get what they want within all these meetings, and they almost always get what they want. And he was saying, it was a really interesting bit. He said they're very clever because everything comes into play in a couple of years. And it sneaks in rather than like this was dropped in our faces. If they'd said in 4 years' time we might do this, probably no uproar at all. But the way that it happened versus possibly what they've been doing before, where they're sneaking things through, it made it obvious to the fans. So that was a really interesting thing that he said.
Yeah, I think even with that, if they said 4 years' time, we're going to do this, the aspect they completely messed up on, and the aspect that the Americans are desperate for, is the non-competitive basis of money always being safe in the pocket, the business element, which is obviously the perfect business for anyone, to have absolutely certain cash coming to you day in, day out. So I think that would always have wildly. But I listen to Simon Jordan. I think he's a very intelligent guy. I know a lot of people don't like him because he can come across as a bit stuck up. But if you listen, I think generally, if you just open your mind up and your ears, a lot of things he said ring very true. He's been screaming about Man City for the longest time, not saying that they're doing anything wrong, but just saying that Man City have changed the landscape, and the landscape being this amount of money is possible, and players can be paid this amount of money. And he's talking about the trickle effect of how that changes everything, and how no one seems to be talking about that, because, and basically the idea that there needs to be some kind of wage cap eventually. And I agree with a lot of things he says. But boys, I have 2 questions for you to tail off and to finish, and we can go to bed. The first one being, we obviously all felt disconnected to the club. Mourinho's been let go. All of this has happened. Do you feel more connected to the club, or less, or the same? Ollie, I'll ask you first, please, mate.
I don't feel less disconnected to the club. I feel a lot less careful happens to Levy and our owners. Levy always got a lot of stick, and I always respected the fact that he ran our club properly, and we weren't massively in debt. He managed to get us a wicked stadium, all the great stuff that he did. No, I couldn't give a shit. He can go as far as I'm concerned. Like, I've got no care. Yes, he's run us well, but unfortunately, he's got this one horribly wrong. And yeah, no interest in that. And the fast like you said, Jez, these six chairmen, owners, whatever you want to call them, not one of them has got the balls to come out and say something. Not one of them. They're hide behind the clubs, hiding behind poor Ryan Mason, all these people. I mean, and the only one who did come out was Real Madrid, Florentino Perez, and he's a prick anyway. But yeah, I feel more disconnected from the club because, as you said, Pete, Tottenham Hotspur are more than a chairman and an owner. I was already a bit disconnected because of what Mourinho's allowed to happen to our club. But yeah, I have no interest at all now in what happens to our owners. And quite frankly, if they were to sell us, happy days.
Good points, mate. And Pete?
I'm trying desperately to hold on to the fact that it's not the club's fault. But like you were saying about the club is the people that own it. In terms of the team on the pitch, I'll watch on Wednesday, whereas I probably wouldn't have done if Mourinho was still in charge, just because I'm intrigued to see what happens with Ryan Mason. Don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting to suddenly be playing beautiful football, but I'm expecting that we may be a little bit more expansive, and at the very least, it'll be a bit more exciting. In terms of being disconnected from the club, I still feel like they've taken a massive shit on every fan. And that's going to be really difficult to come back from unless, like Ollie says, they sell up and jump ship, which I can't see happening. I don't see Levy. I said earlier, I don't see Levy ever leaving unless he dies.
It's a fat offer.
Yeah. I think eventually he's a businessman and he will do something crazy, but he said it's something mega. And I think part of it was like, we were hanging on to the the coats of the bloody everybody else who deserved to be in there. Like, well, we can't be left behind. And perhaps that if we had been in the Super League, think how much we could have sold the club for. I wonder if that was a thought process as well. But yeah, I'll clarify that, Pete, is, like you say, I said that is what the club is now. You are right in that the club is bigger than just what the owners are, and the club is history and so on. But yeah, ultimately, I stand by that. Whoever's at the head of it, that is what your club is right now, and you can't really fight against that. But I don't want to take away from you that the club is more than that, because you are correct. The club is more than just these guys, these ignorant characters at the top. From my side, this morning and throughout the day, to be honest, as I said, I was thinking it was going to be a breakup. So I was ready to just walk away from the club, and I wouldn't stand by something that is so immoral. I wouldn't be able to. I just think it'd be wrong. And I'll be a part of it if I'd have continued. But now, yeah, to keep with the same analogy, it's like I've come home and my missus has said to me, "Oh, do you know what? I'm actually willing to give it another go if you are." So there's a slight euphoria of like, oh, I don't have to leave Tottenham. I don't have to not love the club that I've loved for so long, for my whole life. So there is that slight bit there, but I don't want to almost let her off the hook, because I think easily, perhaps in this scenario, she cheated on me.
It does feel like there's like a stain, isn't there? Like a permanent stain on the relationship that it doesn't matter how much time passes, it'll still be there.
Doomed to fail, a relationship that's doomed to fail. But no, perhaps I actually feel slightly, I was going to say slightly more connected to the club, but no, I think I still feel quite disconnected. But like, as Ollie said, I agree. It's like the manager, if I'm honest, I wasn't enjoying the slightest. I couldn't warm to him. I tried to, desperately, and just didn't work out. Pleased to see him gone. But yeah, I agree with you. I would often openly defend Levy and say, look, he runs it fantastic from a business perspective. From like the inner workings of even where I work now, I look at Levy and I think, yeah, you run a tight ship and you do very well in all business senses. But now I'll happily just see the back of him, get him gone. I'm fully on that train. ENIC out as well, because they've shown, like you said, they don't give a shit about us. So why should we give a shit about them? So I completely agree in that sense. So yeah, let's take our club back. Hostile takeover, non-hostile takeover. Actually, everyone loved one of them. The last one, chaps, is are you or are you not entertained? And I'm going to go first. Like it or hate it, I've been thoroughly entertained. But
it's been very exciting.
Exciting days.
Utter madness. It's been a complete storm. So, Pete, have you been entertained?
I've been non-stop, mate. Since it broke, I've been just Twitter, just scroll. Sky Sports, scroll. Give me more breaking news. I want more of it. Inject it straight into my veins.
I haven't been able to concentrate at work, honestly. My productivity, actually, I've been very hard working.
If you're watching Jerry's work, he's been very good.
Bringing in enterprise level deals. You got it, guys. Ollie, how about yourself?
Same. It's been a fascinating couple of days. It really has. It's given us plenty to talk about. I mean, we were preparing for a very drab, dry, quite sad sort of time, I suppose, for us and talk.
Yeah,
it's meant to be a cup final week. We should be shouting from the rooftops. We're well excited. I do have a slight bit of more excitement about the cup final than I would have done now that Mourinho's gone. I do feel like we could be surprised. We could see like a Stevie Bergwijn come in, Gareth Bale comes in, Dele Alli comes in. Who knows what's going to happen? But it's a shame that the clubs have had to shit on all of us for us to be kind of brought together.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. What is kind of nice is it seemingly united football.
Yeah.
Well, football fans. It didn't unite football because obviously there were 12 clubs, fighting against the other ones. But fans in all of these football clubs, seemingly across the world, not even just in England, just united and absolutely battered it. And then surprisingly, these tough, ruthless, cutthroat businessmen shat their pants and gave up, which is ludicrous because, if it was a power play, very clever, but it obviously wasn't a power play because everyone's quitting their jobs. So, but thank God, football won, eh? Football's won. Spurs are still on the fence with, and just let the people know as well, actually, the plan from us, because of this kind of disconnect at the minute and less love, I guess, at the moment for the club and to support them and to really sing from the rooftops about them. We're not recording as often, but we will do one or two before the end of the season, and then I reckon, boys, we could maybe get a bit excited for the England, because that's what we need at the moment, I think. So.
Ryan Mason's blue and white army.
and with that,
thank God we have Harry Kane.
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy him whilst you can, everybody. Because if this all goes tits up and he leaves, that I will be sadder than I have ever been over a player leaving our club.
If you love Harry Kane, subscribe, like us, comment, share, because it's worthwhile. Because we'll keep him at the club. We will.
Absolutely. We'll change our name.
And on that as well, we're not going to disappear. We will be next season. There might be a slight rebranding, perhaps. But we'll still be Spurs fans by the looks of it, so that's good news. But all the best. Thanks for listening. Love you. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.